Cooper.
Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing, a bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal.
In the heart of eastern Washington lies a strange mystery, Mel's Hole, a seemingly bottomless pit wrapped in mystery. Discovered by local resident Mel Waters, this hole has led to a series of eerie discoveries and unexplainable events that defy rational understanding. Surveillance cameras lowered into its depths have captured unsettling images, leaving even seasoned scientists perplexed. Surrounded by whispers of paranormal activity and government secrecy, the truth behind this unfathomable void remains elusive. Join us as we delve into the mind-blowing story of Mel's Hole and uncover the secrets hidden within its dark depths. The endless well in the hills, in a remote corner of eastern Washington, a mysterious enigma continues to baffle and intrigue locals and visitors alike. Nestled among the rolling hills, a strange scene, a seemingly endless pit, has captured the imagination of many. Known as Mel's Hole, this curious phenomenon has been the subject of many tales and explorations. Denise Whitaker from KF embarked on a journey eastward to uncover the truth behind this enigmatic pit. When a camera was lowered into this abyss, the footage it returned astounded people across the globe. This unusual pit is located on what is known as the MOT property, situated to the west of a place called Ellensburg, specifically on the Manistash Ridge. It looks like a regular hole in the ground, similar to a well, but it's not for drawing water. Over the years, it became a makeshift dumping site where various items were discarded, from household trash to broken machinery and worn-out car tires. Many things were thrown into this hole, but surprisingly, no matter how much was dumped, the hole seemed to never fill up, which made Mel, the property's owner, very curious about its depth and contents. Strange happenings began to unfold around this mysterious pit. Mel noticed that his dogs would steer clear of it, acting as if they were wary or frightened. He also detected odd, unexplainable signals on his radio when near the hole, and it seemed to have no bottom at all. Stories and theories about Mel's Hole began to spread far and wide. In 2017, a brave team of researchers located the hole and decided to investigate further by lowering a camera into its depths. What they saw was beyond belief and so alarming that they were compelled to escape, realizing the potential danger they were in. Join us as we delve into the story of Mel's Hole, uncovering the chilling mysteries and the bold efforts of those who sought to uncover its secrets. The pit, known as Mel's Hole, is not just any ordinary hole. It is a large circular gap, about 9 feet across, encircled by a wall made of stones. This wall extends down about 15 feet before giving way to complete darkness. The hole has been a community dumping site for years, not only by Mel Waters and his wife, but by neighbors as well, even before Mel moved to the area. What is peculiar is that there's no sound when things are tossed into the hole, no echoes or any sign that they've reached the bottom, which bewilders everyone. Driven by curiosity and a knack for problem solving, Mel Waters, an avid fisherman, decided to take matters into his own hands. He wanted to discover how deep this mysterious hole actually was. Using his fishing gear, he attached a 1-pound weight to a fishing line and began lowering it into the pit. To his astonishment, even after unspooling 4,500 feet of line, the weight had not reached the bottom, leaving the true depth of the hole a bewildering mystery still unsolved. Without giving up, Mel pulled the fishing line back up. This time, he attached a pack of Lifesavers candy to it instead of the heavy weight, hoping he might find water way down in the hole. He let the Lifesavers drop deep down, but when he pulled them back up, they were still completely dry, not a drop of water on them. Undaunted, Mel kept trying. He attached more and more fishing line together, sending it down into the abyss until he had used almost 10,000 feet of line. That's nearly 2 miles straight down, but still there was no bottom in sight. Even after using a total of 80,000 feet of line, that's more than 15 miles. He found nothing. The hole just seemed to go on forever, keeping its secrets hidden away. Mel noticed something else strange during his experiments. His dogs wanted nothing to do with the hole. They would pull back, digging their paws into the ground, refusing to go anywhere near it. It was as if they knew something was wrong, feeling some kind of invisible danger. And it wasn't just the dogs acting weird. The area around the hole was eerily silent, with no birds or insects, although birds would fly over it as if the hole didn't bother them from the air. When Mel talked to his neighbors about this, they all said their dogs acted the same way. And then one neighbor told him a shocking story. This man had recently lost his beloved dog, and in his grief, he had thrown the dog's body into the hole. But a few days later, he saw the same dog, wearing its familiar collar, alive and running through the woods. He called out to the dog, but it acted as if it didn't know him, as if it had come from someplace else, maybe even another world. Could that really be true? It sounded like something out of a science fiction story. With all these strange happenings and the endless depth of the hole, Mel felt overwhelmed and unsure of what to do next. It was 1997, and there was one place where people talked about unusual, unexplained things. The radio show Coast to Coast, AM, with host Art Bell. Art's show was famous for exploring the mysterious and the paranormal, broadcasted from the desert and listened to by millions of people all over the world. Mel decided to reach out to Art Bell and his listeners. Maybe they could help make sense of the bottomless hole and the strange things happening around it. If there was any chance to find answers, it would be through the curious and open-minded audience of Coast to Coast AM. The Mel's Hole saga darkens with government involvement and deeper mysteries on a popular radio show. Chapter 2. Mel and the Military Secret, the hole that changed everything. The radio show that unearthed a mystery, the forbidden land and the hidden truth, government secrets, and the endless pit. On the 21st of February, in the year 1997, something big happened for Mel. He decided to share his story with Art Bell, a well-known radio host who loved talking about mysteries. Mel sent a message to Art, and not long after, they had a phone chat. That conversation was the start of something huge. Suddenly, everyone, everywhere, was talking about Mel's mysterious hole. Over a few radio programs, Mel shared more and more about his deep, strange hole. People from all corners of the globe listened and gave Mel tips. They suggested he use special light beams called lasers to see how deep the hole went, or try radar, which can see through the ground. But sharing his story had a big downside. Now the whole world knew about the hole, all because Mel had talked about it on the radio. He gave away little clues about where the hole was. The very next day, when Mel tried to go back to his land, he found he couldn't get in. The United States military had found out about the hole and had taken over. They didn't want anyone else near it. Right after Mel had talked on the radio show on Friday night, he noticed helicopters buzzing over his land, and they didn't stop the next day. Mel had also mentioned that the hole seemed to change the world around it. Animals didn't like it and stayed away, but plants seemed to do really well near it. Radios didn't work right by the hole either. If you brought a radio close, it would start making weird noises, and sometimes it would pick up stations from far away, or even from the past. Once, Mel's radio started playing old-time tunes, like from decades ago. He tried to change the station, but instead, he found himself listening to a baseball game from 1967, 30 years before. When Art first talked to Mel on his show, they spoke for about an hour. Mel was in a place called Ellensburg when he made that call, but when he tried to get back to his land afterward, he was stopped. The military had blocked the way. They had big vehicles and were armed. They told Mel a plane had crashed on his land, but there was no sign of a crash, no broken pieces, no fire, nothing. Yet Mel couldn't get past them. They said they had to check out the crash site first. When Mel asked to speak to their boss, a man dressed in regular clothes came out. This man hinted that Mel might not own his land anymore, and even threatened him by saying they might find illegal stuff there, like a secret drug-making place, if he made trouble. Mel, feeling brave, said he'd tell the news people. But the man just laughed. He said, "Go ahead and talk. No one would believe your story anyway." But believe it or not, Art Bell and his listeners were ready to believe anything. A couple of days later, Art called Mel back to see what was new. Mel had a wild story to share, even though he hadn't seen it himself. One of his neighbors had seen something really strange, a dark beam of light shooting up from the hole, cutting right through the clouds. It was a kind of darkness that was totally new and scary. Now, Mel hadn't actually seen this dark beam himself, but Art Bell and many of the people who called into his show said that this area of Washington was famous for all sorts of weird stuff. People had seen UFOs, people and things had disappeared, and other odd events had happened there. The people who called into the show had all sorts of ideas about the hole. Some thought it was located on what's called a ley line, which some people believe is like an invisible energy line across the earth. They thought maybe the hole was a gateway to another place, or even another time. They imagined that all the stuff thrown into the hole, like trash, broken things, and sadly, animals, might end up piled up somewhere else in a different world. One caller even suggested that the hole might be an entrance to the hollow earth. That's an old idea that inside our planet, there's a whole other world, kind of like a giant cave. People kept coming up with more and more theories. Since Art Bell couldn't go back to his own land, he asked people nearby what they knew. An old neighbor said that, a long time ago, there used to be big stone pillars around the hole. Listeners warned Mel that talking on the radio might not be so smart because the government could be listening. At the end of the show, Mel said he'd come back to share more news, but when it was time for him to appear again, he was nowhere to be found. He didn't answer his phone or anything. Then a TV crew decided to go to Ellensburg to check things out for themselves. But when they got there, they couldn't find any hole. What they did find, though, were a bunch of military plans and information that made it pretty clear that the military had been there. Or maybe they still were. Mel vanished for a little while, but then, out of nowhere, he returned. This time, he had an even stranger story to tell. He said that after his land was taken by the military, they offered him a deal. They would pay him a good amount of money every month if he left the country. Mel took the deal. For about 2 years, he lived in Australia, getting regular payments from the US government. But eventually, Mel decided to come back to the United States. When he returned, he brought with him some weird and almost unbelievable stories. According to Mel, while he was in Australia, he had been conducting some experiments with a very unusual kind of sheep. This sheep, which Mel called a womb sheep, had a strange ability. When its wool was spun into yarn, the yarn could heal people. The wool had powerful healing qualities, almost like magic. Mel believed that this wool could be a great discovery, and he had been trying to learn more about it. But the story got weirder. Mel also claimed that the government had taken a great interest in his experiments. They wanted to know more about the healing wool, and they were closely watching what he was doing. This part of Mel's story seemed a little out there, even for the people who were following his saga. But there were still many who believed that Mel had truly stumbled onto something extraordinary. After returning to the US, Mel's experiences became even more bizarre. He told a story about how the government had forced him to give up his land, but this time he was more detailed. He said that the government had sent agents to threaten him and his family. They made it clear that if he didn't leave, something terrible would happen. They also hinted that his life could be in danger if he continued to talk about the hole or his experiments. Mel was scared, but he still felt compelled to tell his story. In one of his final interviews, Mel mentioned that he had seen something so strange and horrifying that it haunted him for the rest of his life. He didn't go into detail, but he hinted that whatever was at the bottom of the hole was beyond human comprehension. It was something ancient, powerful, and perhaps even alive. Some listeners believed that Mel had come face to face with a dark force or a hidden truth about the universe. Others thought that Mel was simply spinning more tall tales to keep the mystery alive. Over time, Mel's story faded from the public eye. People stopped talking about the hole, and Mel himself seemed to disappear for good. No one knows for sure what happened to him or if his story was ever true. Some believe that the government covered up the whole thing, while others think that Mel simply made it all up for attention. Yet even today, the legend of Mel's hole lives on in internet forums, paranormal podcasts, and late-night discussions. It's one of those mysteries that seems too strange to be true, but too captivating to forget. In the years since Mel's story first appeared on the radio, many people have tried to verify his claims. Some have traveled to Ellensburg, Washington, where Mel said his property was located, in search of the mysterious hole. Others have scoured maps and satellite images, hoping to spot something unusual in the area. Despite all these efforts, no one has ever been able to find Mel's hole. Skeptics have pointed out many inconsistencies in Mel's story. For one thing, Mel never provided an exact location for his land, making it impossible to pinpoint the hole. Additionally, none of the local residents or authorities in the area have ever reported anything like the events Mel described. If the military had truly taken over a large piece of land, there would likely have been some record of it, but no such records exist. Moreover, the scientific aspects of Mel's story don't add up. A hole 9 miles deep would be far deeper than the deepest hole ever drilled by humans, the Kola Super Deep borehole in Russia, which reaches a depth of about 7.5 miles. Drilling to such a depth presents massive technical challenges, not to mention the question of how a natural hole of that size could have formed in the first place. The claim that the hole had no bottom, that objects thrown into it never made a sound, also defies physical laws. There are also problems with Mel's claims about the sheep and the mysterious wool. The idea that a specific type of wool could have healing properties sounds more like something out of a science fiction or fantasy story than a real scientific discovery. While some animals do produce substances with medicinal value, there's no evidence that any kind of wool could have the powers Mel described. Despite all this, Mel's story has continued to attract a following. Some people believe that the government could have covered up the existence of the hole, and that Mel's reluctance to reveal more details about his land was a way of protecting himself from further threats. Others suggest that Mel was simply a storyteller who enjoyed creating elaborate tales to entertain and mystify his audience. In the end, Mel's hole remains an enigma. There is no proof that it ever existed, but there is also no definitive evidence to prove that it didn't. The story taps into a deep well of human curiosity about the unknown and the possibility that there are still mysteries in the world that we have yet to uncover. Whether it's real or not, Mel's hole has secured its place in the annals of paranormal folklore. Some conspiracy theorists have speculated that the hole might be connected to ancient legends of bottomless pits or gateways to other dimensions. Stories of such holes exist in various cultures, often associated with supernatural entities or hidden realms. Could Mel's hole be one of these portals, hidden away in a remote corner of the Pacific Northwest? While most people dismiss such ideas as fantasy, there are always those who are willing to believe. As for Mel himself, he remains an elusive figure. After his last few radio appearances, he vanished from the public eye. There have been occasional rumors of sightings, but nothing has ever been confirmed. Some say that he went into hiding, either to escape government surveillance or to protect himself from the dark forces he had encountered. Others think that Mel simply got tired of the attention and chose to fade into obscurity. Regardless of what happened to Mel, his story has taken on a life of its own. It continues to be discussed and debated, and new generations of listeners are drawn to the mystery of the hole. Whether it was a grand hoax, a misunderstood event, or something more, Mel's hole has become one of those enduring mysteries that captures the imagination and refuses to let go. For some, the story of Mel's hole is more than just an entertaining mystery. It has become a symbol of the unknown forces at work in the world. There is a certain allure to the idea that there are things out there that defy explanation, places that science cannot fully understand, and mysteries that remain hidden from everyday life. The hole represents a kind of forbidden knowledge, something that we might catch a glimpse of if we're willing to look beyond the surface of reality. Mel's tale taps into the human fascination with the unknown. Throughout history, people have told stories about strange and mysterious places, remote caves, deep forests, or uncharted islands that are home to unusual phenomena. These places are often depicted as being at the edges of the known world, just beyond the reach of civilization. They represent both danger and possibility, the idea that there is still something out there waiting to be discovered. In the case of Mel's hole, the mystery is deepened by the involvement of shadowy government forces and the suggestion that the hole might possess otherworldly properties. This taps into another long-standing theme in paranormal lore, the belief that powerful entities, whether they be governments, secret societies, or extraterrestrial beings, are hiding the truth from the public. Mel's story plays into the idea that there are things happening behind the scenes that we aren't supposed to know about. In fact, some conspiracy theorists have taken Mel's story as evidence that the government is hiding advanced technology or knowledge of other dimensions. The fact that Mel claimed the military seized his land and forced him to leave only adds fuel to these theories. Could it be that the hole represented a kind of technological anomaly that the government wanted to study in secret? Or perhaps it was a natural phenomenon that defied our understanding of the laws of physics? Of course, there's no real evidence to support any of these theories, but the lack of evidence hasn't stopped people from speculating. For believers, the very fact that no trace of the hole has been found only makes the story more intriguing. After all, if the government truly did take control of the area, It's possible that they could have covered their tracks well enough to hide all traces of the hole from the public. To these believers, the story is not just about whether the hole exists, but about the larger question of what secrets the government might be keeping from us. For skeptics, however, the story of Mel's Hole is nothing more than an elaborate hoax or an urban legend. They argue that the lack of verifiable evidence points to one simple conclusion: Mel made the whole thing up. Perhaps he was simply trying to entertain his audience with a fantastical story, or maybe he was playing a prank that got out of hand. In either case, the skeptics say, there's no reason to believe that the hole was ever real. Ultimately, the story of Mel's Hole is less about the hole itself and more about the way people respond to it. For some, it is a tantalizing glimpse of something beyond the ordinary, a mystery that could open the door to new possibilities. For others, it's a reminder of how easily people can be fooled by a good story. In either case, the hole has become a kind of cultural touchstone, a symbol of the enduring human fascination with the unknown. As long as people continue to seek out mysteries and unexplained phenomena, stories like Mel's Hole will continue to captivate and inspire. Whether the hole is real or not, it serves as a reminder that there are still things in the world that we do not fully understand. And for many, that's enough to keep the legend alive. In the years since Mel's first appearance on Coast to Coast AM, the legend of Mel's Hole has taken on a life of its own. Numerous theories have been proposed to explain what the hole might be and what kind of phenomena might be associated with it. Some of these theories are relatively straightforward, while others are far more outlandish. One of the more popular explanations is that Mel's Hole could be some kind of naturally occurring geological formation, such as a deep sinkhole or a volcanic vent. Sinkholes can form suddenly and be incredibly deep, while volcanic vents might release unusual gases or create strange magnetic fields. However, this theory doesn't fully account for some of the more bizarre details of Mel's story, such as the seemingly bottomless nature of the hole or the strange properties of objects that were thrown into it. Another theory suggests that the hole might be a portal to another dimension or an entry point into a vast underground world. This idea has been popular in paranormal and conspiracy circles for years, with some people believing that there are secret tunnels or hidden chambers beneath the Earth's surface where unknown creatures or beings reside. In this context, Mel's Hole could be seen as a kind of gateway to this hidden world, a place where the laws of physics no longer apply. There are even those who believe that the hole might be connected to extraterrestrial activity. Some proponents of this theory point to the fact that Mel claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky near the hole, and that his encounters with the military suggest that the government might have been investigating the area for signs of alien life. According to this line of thinking, the hole could be some kind of alien technology, a landing site, or even a testing ground for advanced otherworldly devices. Still, others believe that Mel's Hole could be a manifestation of some kind of supernatural force. The idea that certain places are imbued with mystical or otherworldly energy is a common theme in folklore and mythology. Some have suggested that the hole might be a kind of spiritual or metaphysical anomaly, a place where the veil between our world and the spirit world is unusually thin. This theory could explain some of the stranger phenomena associated with the hole, such as the resurrection of the dead animal or the odd behavior of the military personnel Mel encountered. Despite the many theories, one thing remains clear: the mystery of Mel's Hole has captured the imagination of countless people. The story has been retold in forums, blogs, and podcasts, each new retelling adding to the legend. Whether or not the hole actually exists, it has become a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that there are still mysteries in the world that we may never fully understand. In the end, the story of Mel's Hole may never be solved, but perhaps that's part of its appeal. The mystery itself is what draws people in, inviting them to ponder the possibilities and consider what might lie beyond the edge of our understanding. Whether it's a natural phenomenon, an elaborate hoax, or something truly out of this world, the legend of Mel's Hole continues to fascinate and inspire those who seek to uncover the truth about the strange and unexplained.